Ladies and gentlemen, some Ben on Ben action. The community tab has spoken. I said, who do you want a collaboration with? They said, Ben HD. Welcome, the man, the myth, the legend.
It's an absolute pleasure. We were just saying off air, it's been a long time since we last caught up. But yeah, good to get with you, Ben. How you been?
Grand, mate. I'm conscious I haven't got you for long, so I'm going to dive straight in. I'm looking at a championship table with Sheffield United, Southampton, Ipswich, Norwich in the bottom half, and Swansea, Millwall, QPR, Preston, Bristol City, and Stoke in the top half. What is going on in the championship this year? Is this all going to turn over like an egg timer, or are the optimistic people saying we're going to get an interesting looking championship table this season onto something?
I kind of hope the latter. I don't know if you found this in your weekly championship predictions so far this season, but it's been a bit of a minefield so far. I think looking at the teams, obviously, that you mentioned then that have kept struggling, I think I've sort of been of the opinion that this will probably be the week where they come good and things click into gear, but it's just not happened so far. But I am, we are only 6 games into this season. It's still very early days, but the fact that we've got so many sides who, a lot of us, myself included, tipped to struggle at the start of the season, doing so well and in that sort of top 6 mix at the moment, I think it's been a bit of a welcome change. So long may it continue, I say, but I do have the opinion that I think some of those sides that are struggling down at the bottom, there will be a moment where they do probably click into gear.
What do you make of because you're exactly right, and none of the 4 parachute teams scored a win in round 6, and by the time we get to round 6, you're expecting 2 or 3 of them, and then when we're into spring, all 3 or 4 of them are winning every blooming week, aren't they? I mean, I must say I'm one of the bad guys now as an Ipswich fan. What are your thoughts on the parachute teams? Obviously, Sheffield United's a bit of a aberration. Leicester are doing okay, aren't they? But Southampton and Ipswich, what is it? Churn? Other sides being less scared of them than they were? I don't get it.
Yeah, potentially. Obviously, I've seen a few of them over the 90 minutes at Deepdale so far this season when we obviously had you guys and had Leicester. To my feeling, it did feel a little bit towards, I mean, in the Leicester game especially, a few players sort of knew that they were probably going to be getting moved towards the end of the window. And it did feel like a lot of those clubs did a lot of their business quite late on, really. So with that aspect, I think there probably is a bit of a bedding in period. But it is strange that at least one of them hasn't got off to an absolute flyer, like has been the case in previous years. Obviously, we've got Middlesbrough up there at the moment, which I think is a bit of a surprise package for a lot of people. Even they did a lot of their business later on. But yeah, tough one to put my finger on at the moment. But if push came to shove, I think I'd still would have Ipswich and Southampton in my top 6 come the end of the season.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people on the same page there. But you know what it's like, Ben, in the Championship with momentum. And I mean, Ipswich and Southampton have both got 6 points. Middlesbrough are 10 points ahead. So if Middlesbrough keep piling on 1.8 points per game, it gets hard for Ipswich and Southampton to catch up, even over the kind of long haul. We'll come to Preston last for obvious reasons, but there's some nice surprises up the top there. Do you want to talk particularly about any of the top 3? Borough, Stoke, Bristol City, 6 games out. That's tremendous and surprising, isn't it? Bristol City going to Deepdale, am I right, this weekend?
Yeah, that should be an interesting one. Emil Rees coming back to Deepdale.
Right, yeah.
I think it would be typical if he bags a goal or so in that game.
Guaranteed.
But yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Bristol City are an interesting one. All 3 that you mentioned there. I think a lot of people we're probably a bit down on Bristol City coming into this season just because of the managerial situation, Manning moving on. I think Struber, last time he was at Barnsley, I thought they played some decent stuff, but tough to gauge over that sort of sample size how we do going into a club like Bristol City. I think a lot of people probably took the opinion that they'll probably take a bit of time to get going with that sort of transition of football, but it's just not been the case whatsoever. The real surprise for me in that top 3 so far probably would be Stoke. I think because of the amount of false dawns we've had there.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it.
over every single summer. And I was quite down on Stoke coming into this season, it has to be said. I thought that Robbins had done a steady job towards the back end of last season, but I still thought they were in that sort of grinding sort of phase where I didn't see where the shoots were going to come from. But the longer that summer went on, some of the players they started to pick up, I thought, oh, maybe there is a bit of optimism here. But I sort of shunned myself from that in my predictions and shoved them down there in the table in the end. But pleasantly surprised by them so far. And yeah, Middlesbrough as well. What a watch they've been. Great win for them last time out against West Brom, and quite pleased that it's only North End so far who've taken points off them. So yeah, real surprise packages, those three.
I promise we'll get to Preston. Just one more. Just talk to me about Coventry real quickly, because I know you're one for trends and data, and long-term trend for Coventry is they generally win and they generally make a lot of chances going back to Lampard arriving. That's got to bode well. And if we're in an open door season, they could run right through, couldn't they?
Yeah, I think I am quite high on Coventry at the moment. It's been quite draw heavy so far, 4 draws in there. But like you say, when they have won, they really have put sides to the sword, and their underlying data has been really promising so far this season. It feels like a pretty settled squad as well at the moment, which I quite like. There wasn't an abundance of transfer activity over the summer. Kept hold of their big players as well, which I thought was absolutely massive. And I think a lot of people probably looked at Cov at the start of the season thinking, if it was going to be a bit of a boring championship season where all the parachute teams are up there, who's going to be one of those that can sort of challenge that pack? Coventry were probably the popular pick for a lot of people. I think I had them 4th maybe in my predictions at the start of the season, but with some of the other slow starters, there's definitely territory there where automatic promotion could potentially be something that they're fighting for. But yeah, let's see how these next few games unfold.
Right, let's talk about Preston then, because I put the shout out for questions. Obviously, a lot of them are Preston based. And if you're not a follower of Ben HD, go and hit subscribe right after watching this video. But he's obviously a long-suffering Preston fan. And I suppose the view from the outside of Preston, Ben, if I may, is that we went into last season and everyone's like, oh, Preston always kind of finagle their way into 10th or 11th or sometimes 8th at best. That's where they'll be. And then it was disappointing and a real scare at the end of last season, wasn't it? So everyone kind of thinks, well, if that trend continues, there's only one further place to go for Preston. And okay, Heckingbottom's got a promotion on his CV, but that was with a parachute team and they went early with the business. But had they brought in the quality... and I think me and many other people have been proved wrong, you know. Heckingbottom, maybe it wasn't just a parachute team. Maybe he did do a really good job at Sheffield United, and maybe the early signings were the right signings, and they were bedded in well. And I mean, what a home record as well for North End. Talk to me about Preston, and do you forgive me for my lack of optimism?
Listen, I think there's a lot of North End fans on Twitter right now who are giving it out to a lot of people who had tipped us to go down at the start of the season. But to be fair, I wasn't massively high on Preston either. I think I had us predicted to finish about 20th before a ball had been kicked. Because I do think there were genuine concerns over, obviously, how last season had ended and stuff like that. And the back end of last season just turned out to be a bit of a perfect storm, really, obviously. We had that run in the FA Cup. I think there was definitely a bit of complacency in the league where everyone around the club sort of assumed we were safe. We went too soon in telling players that they weren't going to be offered contracts at the end of the season. We had a few injuries piling up. And even if you look at a lot of the results at the back end of last season, it wasn't as if we were getting battered. They were all marginal defeats where we just didn't quite have the rub of the green and that sort of stuff. But a big reset was needed over the summer. Last season was just a bit farcical, really, with Ryan Lowe leaving after one match and Heckingbottom having to pick up the pieces after that, really. So Hecky getting a full pre-season and the signings we've made. I think one area where North End have always tended to do really well in the market is with loan signings. I think you can go back numerous years now where we've done really well in that market. And I think this summer as well, we've done really well. Alfie Devine looks like a really exciting pickup.
Dobbins started out... Derby, was
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Dobbins started out really well. Harrison Armstrong's very highly rated at Everton. We're yet to properly integrate him into the side, but sprinkled in with a few other sensible pickups, a Thierry Small in there, a few others, getting Dan Iverson back on a free transfer. It's suddenly looking like a pretty well-rounded squad, certainly compared to the back end of last season where, like I say, it was just that bit of a perfect storm, really. So, yeah, long may it continue. I say I'm enjoying this start of the season.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant stuff. What I'll do, we put the shout out for questions for Ben on the community tab earlier. There are quite a few about Preston. So if we continue the Preston chat, and I'll throw some questions at you. This is from Alex. What are we going to do if Osmajic gets banned? And what are Ben's thoughts on it taking 7 months to get a hearing?
Yeah, so as we're recording at the moment, that hearing is taking place over the next few days. So hopefully by the end of this week, we will have a bit of a verdict on the actual outcome of that. It is. I don't think anyone's enjoyed it having dragged on for this long. Burnley, Preston, and that, yeah, nothing's sort of been resolved out of it throughout that time. I've sort of taken a step back from it all, really, until we do get a verdict. I think that's the fair thing to do, really, because obviously we're not privy to all the information that the clubs have got and everything like that. But probably the one regret that North End fans had from over the summer was not getting in that extra striker, in the case that if Osmajic is handed a bit of a lengthy ban, I think we could be looking
He's playing
quite
really
light.
well.
Yeah, he started this season like an absolute house on fire. So if he is handed that ban, I think we will be looking a little bit light in that position. Jebison still yet to prove if he's the man, but I suppose he'll be given the run of games to prove that. So, yeah, let's wait and see on that one.
It's from Alexander. How are Michael Smith and Paul Valentin getting on at Deepdale? And he's put some owl emojis afterwards. So presumably, I said Ben's a long-suffering Preston fan, and even longer-suffering Wednesday fan there.
Yeah, we sort of took advantage of that Wednesday situation there, but both really well. Paul Valentin especially, been really impressed with. It's such a blessing to have a bit of pace in this squad. I think it's something that we badly lacked at North End, even going back to like the last proper rapid player I can remember at Preston. And I'm probably forgetting one or two, but you're going back to like Tom Barkhuizen, who was like
Oh,
prime
God, yeah.
in his prime in like 2018, 2019. And since that point, we've just had a real lack of pace. So the fact we've got Paul down the right-hand side, Small down the left-hand side, who can both bomb on and run at players, yeah, it's nice to have for sure.
This is CG Gaming. Bit of a negative question, but would you rather see Preston in the Premier League for one season, but in that season it's the worst season in Premier League history, or always be around the Championship playoffs but never make it to the Prem? I prefer to focus on what would be a glorious promotion if Preston did get to the Premier League. But yeah, what's your take?
Yeah, I would take that one season in the Prem, sheerly for the fact that it's the only thing that our rivals Blackpool have over us. I think by every other metric, Preston fans can win an argument, but as soon as a Blackpool fan brings up, well, we've played in the Premier League in the modern era, North End fans don't have much to say there. So even if we just lasted for one season like they did, I'd take that just for that.
I get asked this as well, Ben, a lot. Two people, Yvonne and one team in Bristol, ask, if Preston never existed, who would you support?
Ooh. I feel like you could probably take that two ways. Like, you could go for a local team about North End, then it'd probably be like a Bamber Bridge, someone like that. I feel like they're probably the closest to North End. Or if it's like someone who I've got a soft spot for, I think I've developed a bit of a soft spot for Villa over the last few years, just because of the amount of players we've taken from them. If you think got Callum Robinson, Dan Johnson, the loanees we've taken like Archer, Kessler Hayden last season, Dobbin this season. So yeah, maybe Villa just for that reason.
Should Ben HD change his name to Ben 4K to be more current? I've got to ask it. It's up there.
Yeah, that's something that, God, how old was I when I made that name? Maybe like 12, something like that. 12-year-old Ben didn't
Stuck with
see.
it now, mate.
I know. Did not see technology advancing. I thought we're here at HD. That's where we're going to stick. So yeah, I'm stuck with it now. But who knows? Maybe that'll be a second channel, Ben 4K. That could be fun.
I like it. A couple more. Sorry. Safe. Has Ben ever bumped into a fan of his before or after a Preston game? And if so, what did they say?
Yeah, quite on a few occasions. Away games, especially, are always quite fun. The most mad experience I ever had was way back in the day when I only had about probably like 8,000 subscribers or something. I think I was on like my first lads' holiday in Spain or something. I ran into, I think it was a bunch of either Middlesbrough or Aston Villa fans, and a couple of them had recognised me. And I had a good chat with them outside a bar in Spain somewhere.
Unbelievable. The power of YouTube.
Yeah.
I think that's all the Preston questions. There's one more, which I think you might have covered already. Do you think that Coventry will finish there from James in the top 4 this season? I suppose we can open that out. Your kind of premise was, well, stick the parachute teams there and Coventry will probably be there. But I think they could get automatic if we don't now get a run of 9 wins in 11 from Leicester, 8 in 11 from Ipswich, etc., etc. But yeah, I would be fairly. I think the bookies have got Coventry right next to Ipswich in the betting as well, haven't they?
Yeah, no, like I said before, I'm quite high on Coventry right now. The only thing that could potentially derail them a little bit is if a few key injuries pop up. Like I think off the top of my head, they're a bit light in a few positions, squad depth wise, maybe, but start 11 wise, yeah, I'd have them in that automatic mix for sure.
Brilliant stuff. Ben, we'll call it quits there because I know we're limited on time. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure, we're Championship fans. Everybody knows the answer to this question, but where do we find you? We want people to be subscribers to both of our channels here. What can they find over at the Ben HD channel?
Yeah, Ben HD on YouTube. Everything Championship, really. Reactions, previews, all that good stuff. Yeah, get involved. It's always good fun.
And I'm saying this to you, but I've said it to you many times before, so I'm kind of saying this to the audience. But thank you, because you were a really, really early adopter on Championship on YouTube. I remember, I've told you this before, you're probably bored of it. I was sat in Camden before a shift at work, and I was doing Blue Monday, and I was searching for Championship content. And there you were, and it was a big inspiration for me to continue to do stuff. So thank you for all you've done for YouTube Championship conversation.
Hey, I'll take that every day of the week. And it's good to see the Championship scene in general really thriving on YouTube now. I think there's a lot of top content creators that I always watch out for. So yeah, it's good to see.
Brilliant. Who was there first, though? I can't point the right way. That guy. There you go. Thanks so much, Ben HD, for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for the questions. Get down there in the comments and go and subscribe to the Ben HD channel.